Welcome to the Dominate Your Niche podcast with me, Ruth Ferreira. Here we chat to some of today's best small business leaders, individuals who are shaking up their industry and dominating their niche. The show tackles all things business growth, from strategy, marketing and branding, and delves into the secrets of what it takes to dominate your niche. The aim of this podcast is to empower founders with big dreams, small and micro businesses, and even solopreneurs who are looking to make a big impact. People who are hungry to learn from those who have gone before them and implement that knowledge to next level in their own business. So welcome, lean in, and then go take action to propel yourself towards dominating your niche in your small business. Welcome to the latest episode of the Dominate Your Niche podcast with me, Ruth Ferreira. Today, I'm excited to introduce you to Lynsay Gould. Lynsay is the founder of Wavemakers Audio, a leading podcast and audiobook production agency. She has over 20 years of experience as an award-winning coach, trainer, and mentor, and a proven track record of driving results for entrepreneurs and brands. She's established the Podcasting for Business Awards, which celebrates the achievements of indie podcasters globally, and she is the host of the top-ranking Podcasting for Business podcast. Lynsay's helped a whopping 900 clients and students to launch successful podcasts, many of which reach the top of the podcast charts. Key themes from our podcasts include following your curiosity, growth via exposure on LinkedIn, and we looked into podcasting. Why would you set up a podcast to help grow your business? If you were going to do it, how would you do it? Should it take a solo or an interview format? And for those who have existing podcasts, how do you monetize them? An amazing, insightful, and fun podcast. I can't wait for you to listen. Hi, Lynsay. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Ruth. Thank you so much for having me.
It is my pleasure. So, Lynsay, you are the founder of Wavemakers Audio. It's a leading podcast and audio production book company. And what I'd love to know is, how did you end up there? Because I don't know too many people who run businesses in that sector. What was your journey to get there?
Oh, great question. So I've been in the podcasting space since probably the late end of 2016, the start of 2017. And it came about literally from constantly being on the road in my corporate role in HR. So I was in HR before this business for about 20 years and I was traveling a great deal. So I was listening to podcasts all the time. And in the last couple of years that I was in that role, I was wanting to work for myself. And I knew that I wanted to start a podcast when I started because they just helped me so much when I was thinking about starting my own business and working for myself. So what happened was, as soon as I started working for myself as a consultant, I started a podcast, and then I got inundated from people asking about how I'd done it, how do I make money from it, how can they use a microphone, all of those things. And I started doing little workshops on the side. And then about a year later, I started my agency and went all in on it. And it's been growing since then, essentially.
So it was almost like you accidentally started the podcast.
Yeah.
You've gone off on your own, but I'm guessing in HR as an HR consultant.
Yes, absolutely.
But the demand for the podcasting knowledge was so much more.
Yes.
So you pivoted and went into, you followed the demand.
I'll tell you what I did, Ruth. I followed my curiosity, and that's a rule that I feel like I live by. I'm a very curious person, and I go with it. You know, if I feel really curious and excited about something and I feel in my body, oh, this is really exciting and I'm really going to enjoy this, then I go with it. And it's not done me wrong so far, thankfully.
That is an amazing theme to live by. I could learn from that. Amazing. So what strategies have you used in your business to set yourself apart from the competition? Like, how have you grown? How have you stood out?
Again, great question. So a lot of podcast production companies, and as you've already said, you don't see many people doing this. a lot of them are run by men. It's a very male dominated environment. And I started right from the beginning wanting to be obviously female led, but also championing women in this space. Not only people starting a podcast, but behind the mic as well. So I've always hired female producers. I've always really championed people who are coming through the ranks. It's why we started the indie podcasting awards that we did. I have stood out because that is what I do. I focus in on women and the fact that I know that women have powerful things to say. And there's only 11% of top podcasts that are hosted by women.
I did not
So
know.
my big passion is changing that figure, essentially, making
Oh,
sure that more women are behind the mic.
yes, I that actually makes me want to grow my podcast and get up
Exactly.
there just to change that stat. That has never been an ambition of mine, but now it is.
Yeah, good.
Amazing. And you've worked with over 900 clients and
Mhm.
students in your business, which honestly blows my mind. That is amazing. What I'd love to know is where have they all come from? What have been
Mm.
your best sources of business?
That's a really good one. So, the truth is, a whole range of ways, to be honest. When I got started, I made a group on Facebook. Facebook was a thing then still, and doesn't seem to be anymore. But Facebook groups were a big thing when I was starting out. So I created a group. I built that up to almost 5,000 people over a period of time. And a lot of my initial clients came from there. So I was brand new, wet behind the ears, and got my first clients from there. Then, as I sort of grew and started to get results and showing what I could do, then I started getting word of mouth referrals, which, in my view, are probably the best clients.
Hmm.
They're just fantastic because
Yeah.
they know you, they know what you're about, and yeah, they're really happy to come and work with you. So, referrals. And then I'd say in the last sort of 18 months to 2 years, a lot of our clients are coming through LinkedIn, which I know you will love.
Yeah, I'm all over LinkedIn.
Yeah, yeah. So LinkedIn, again, still word of mouth referrals, less so on Facebook now because I don't have an active group on Facebook anymore. I don't really do that. But a lot of our work also comes from sort of in-person events, meeting people, which I absolutely love. And we were really starved of that for a few years, weren't
Mm,
we? But now I'm all
great to
over it
be
again.
back.
Yeah.
So is that local to you because you're up north in
All
England?
over,
All
all
over.
over. But yes, local to me. But I'm in a mastermind. I'm in several community groups. I've got lots of different groups of women that I can get in touch with at any time and be part of. And I love that. Absolutely love it.
Yeah, amazing. Okay. So what's been in this last year, what's been your best source of new business? If you had to pick one,
Mm, I think it's been LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
Genuinely, yeah,
Amazing.
LinkedIn.
And
Mm,
how have you worked LinkedIn? Like
mm.
what's been your strategy to show
Yes,
up, to be visible?
yes. So. I started taking it seriously is number one. That's the first
Yes.
thing I did
Yeah.
because before that it was just somewhere that I had a profile and I dabbled in it. But now it sounds incredibly boring, but it works. So what I do now is I have a spreadsheet. I love a spreadsheet. And I make sure that we do certain tasks every single day. So I'm connecting with new people every day who are my ideal clients. I'm commenting on people in my feed who are ideal clients. I'm making sure that I post every day. I also start conversations and not the horrible spammy sales conversations that honestly drive me insane, but just having genuine conversations with people who interest me. I don't accept connection requests from people that I don't like the idea of what they're doing in their business. So everybody on my sort of connections and follower list right now are people that I'd be really happy to sort of have a chat with. And I think that's been the key for me, not just accepting anyone into my network, making sure that I'm just consistently engaging, posting, having conversations, and just making sure I'm connecting every single day. And that does mean Saturday and Sunday as well, not just during the week.
Wow, that is hardcore, I have to say.
It
And
is.
it is that level of commitment. And I think I was looking at you earlier. I think you've got around 13,000 connections. So
Yeah.
you'd be happy to work with any of them. There's no riffraff in there.
They're all amazing. Yeah,
Love
riffraff.
it. I'm just joking.
There are probably people still in there from my early career in HR as well, but because we work with corporates as well now, they're still great connections to have.
Ooh, now what sort of podcast would a corporate be starting?
Yeah, so it would be a private podcast, so an internal podcast for their employees.
Ooh,
So
interesting.
yeah, we're seeing lots of people doing this as an engagement tool for their employees. So a way to onboard new team members, a way to, to have the CEO be very real and honest and just have conversations with the whole team. It's
I
a
love
great.
that. That must be really motivating for the staff, actually.
Yeah, it's fantastic. There's quite a few banks that do it. Lots of global organizations do them, but they're really starting to get traction now. So yeah, private podcast,
Very,
great one.
very interesting.
Mm.
And what percentage of your clients would be private podcasts? Is it a big thing?
It's not a huge percentage of our clients right now. It's gaining momentum. Um, there aren't many organizations that do it.
Mm,
There are organizations that have public podcasts that anyone can listen to, but
mhm.
it's becoming more of a tool as more and more HR professionals discover podcasts.
Okay.
It's becoming more of a thing.
I feel like you're perfectly positioned to drive that
Mm,
forwards.
yeah, absolutely, we are.
Interesting. Interesting when everything comes together.
Yeah.
Amazing. So, I'd love to ask you some more questions just
Mm,
around podcasting itself, because
yeah.
obviously it's an incredible tool to build your visibility and help you
Mm.
to dominate your niche. So, what I would love to know is why? Why would somebody choose podcasting as a route?
So, podcasting is an incredible way to connect with an audience. That's the first thing I would say. So, for anybody who is looking to grow a business, increase their brand worth, their awareness, anything to do with growth in their business, a podcast can help you with that. So, one of the reasons for that is because we will listen for longer than we'll watch. So we all know how short attention spans are now. It's the reason that Reels and YouTube Shorts and TikTok do incredibly well. So we're very happy to just scroll through social media, doom scrolling.
Yeah,
But we're
I
not,
have to say I
yeah.
haven't done that for the past hour or so. Well, there
All of
was
1 hour,
no offense to
amazing.
my BNI meeting earlier, but there was definitely like a couple of minutes of doom scrolling during it, maybe more.
Exactly. And it's just automatic to us. We're just scrolling, aren't we? So but we're not connecting with what we're seeing. We're
Mm,
entertained by it and it's a way to pass
mm,
time. A
yeah.
podcast it's pretty intimate. You're literally in somebody's ears
Mm.
for
Oh,
20 minutes, half an hour every week. So you have an opportunity to build trust, connection, rapport incredibly quickly. And you will have done this yourself, Ruth. When you find a new podcast that you love, you will binge listen to it. So,
yes.
yeah. So when somebody gets on a call to work with you, to talk about working with you, and they've listened to your podcast, you will find now you have your own that so many more people say yes sooner because they've already binge listened to your content.
I
And
love
that's the
that.
difference.
Yes.
That's the difference.
And do you know what I love as well is I feel like that because it's audio, it often accompanies, I'm going to say mundane tasks.
Mm, yeah.
And I love that I get to accompany a lot of my listeners on things like this school run, if they've got
Mm,
like a long drive to pick up the kids, or, maybe they're doing a road trip. For a lot of them, it's like walking the dog.
yeah.
And they have that regular time where they actively listen to podcasts.
Mm,
And I feel like it's a real privilege to get to accompany them on that,
yeah. It
on
is.
whatever that task is.
Yeah. I totally agree. And even further than that, if we go back just a few years to during the pandemic, I had clients of ours reach out and say that they'd had lovely messages from listeners who lived alone and they
Yes.
weren't seeing people. And those podcast episodes were genuinely getting them through the week. They felt connected. They didn't feel alone. So I would always say to people, like, never underestimate the power of your voice. It sounds incredibly cheesy, I know it does, but it's so true. Like, the ripple effect that you can have just with one episode could be that somebody just feels heard that week, or validated, or like they're not going crazy, or someone else out there feels the same as them. So yes, I obviously I could talk about this all day.
I love it. Are you ready to grow your business this year? Join me for Supercharge Your Month, a 60-minute clarity and strategy workshop to reflect, plan, and get super strategic to make your growth dreams a reality. The first Tuesday of every month at 10 a.m. for just £97, or free if it's your first time. My gift to you. Book on now via the show notes. See you there. So, can you tell me about some of your client wins that have come
Mm,
from their podcast? Either the
yeah,
really logical ones that are
yeah,
like, of course that happened,
yeah.
or this kind of unexpected, like curveball ones.
Yeah. Oh, that's a juicy question. Okay, so what I would say first of all is that every client is so different, and their win could be incredibly different to what you would class as a win, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
So we have clients who are coaches, they are educators, they have product-based businesses, all sorts of a range of people. One of our clients has a training company, and her podcast, I've actually posted on LinkedIn about this a few times because it's such a great story and it makes people understand the power of
Mm-hmm.
podcasts when done well. She has a training company and she signs up 20 clients each month from her podcast. And that amounts to 250,000 in revenue every year, which is just insane.
Wow.
Yeah, it's insane. So,
Wow, that is
yes,
amazing.
it is. It's incredible. She doesn't have a huge amount of downloads either. It's
Mm-hmm.
quite niche what she does. We have clients who have been booked for speaking gigs.
Mm-hmm.
We've had clients who create their podcast as a way to build an audience ready for their book being published the year after.
Yeah,
Yeah, a lot of that. We have people in the top 1%, 3%, and 5% globally of podcasts, which
amazing.
comes with its own opportunities, really. As soon as you can say, actually, I'm a top 5% podcaster
Mm-hmm.
globally, imagine the opportunities that open up in terms of sponsorship and people who want to work with you. So yes, the opportunities are there essentially for any business owner.
Amazing. And you know, our we've had a conversation recently which
Mm,
inspired me to seek podcast sponsorship.
yes.
And that in turn, the ripple effect has
Mm,
actually inspired one of my friends who is a top 5% podcaster
yeah.
to start thinking around that. So I'm
Good.
super excited for her to see what comes. And I'm even
Exciting.
more excited for whoever that sponsor gets to be as well,
Mm,
because she is an absolute powerhouse. So
mm,
yeah, anyone would be lucky to be associated with her. So I'm
yeah.
not naming names at this stage,
No, of
but
course not. But we were talking about this just before we hit record as well. Like, sometimes it's just about asking. People don't, it's particularly women, to be
mhm.
honest. We don't feel that we can ask the question, but you absolutely can. And you're already getting
Yeah,
great
yeah,
responses
and
from your
it's
questions.
actually amazing what
Yeah.
comes when you ask. Yeah,
Mm,
been a little bit blown away. So, do you have any advice for any of our listeners who are like, okay, podcasts,
mm,
maybe this is worth looking into?
mm.
What would your top tips be for them on getting started? Like,
Yeah.
how the heck does one start a podcast?
Yeah, how the heck indeed. Most people who come to us, they've wanted to start a podcast for a long time and they never do it. And then they eventually come to us and go, yeah, I'm not going to do this unless it's done for me. So the first thing I would say when you're thinking about starting a podcast is ask yourself why you want to start it. So with anything in our businesses, we do it for a reason. There has
Hmm.
to be a goal for it. You're not
Hmm.
just going to randomly spend time every week putting a podcast out there for no results. So there has to be an ROI, first of all. So ask yourself, what do you want the outcome to be? Is it to get booked on stages to speak? Is it to sell your book? Is it to grow your email list? Is it to get to speak to big names in your niche that you wouldn't normally get to speak to? Like, what's the result you want? And then I would start thinking about the strategy. So before you buy your sexy microphone and you think about all of your backdrop and all of that good stuff that's really easy for us to do, it's about, okay, why am I doing this? What is it going to be about? Who am I actually speaking to? What is the content going to be? What's the format? How am I going to stand out in my market? They're the
Love it.
questions you need to be able to have rolling off your tongue the answers to before you do anything to do with podcasting, because so many people start a podcast and they give up by episode 10 because they haven't got a strategy. First of all, they realize, oh my goodness, I've started this thing and I actually don't know what to do next. So having that strategy in place, making sure that you batch record is another one I would say. So
Ooh, interesting.
trying not to get into the habit of recording each week, trying rather to batch record a whole month if you can at once, especially if you've got a solo podcast. That's very
Okay.
easy to do.
Interesting. Now,
Yeah.
this is an audio only podcast. I'm not sure if you
Yeah.
knew that or not. So
Mm.
our listeners will have missed my really awkward face there because I'm definitely like not a batch recorder at all.
It's a bit more
Um,
difficult for you though, because you interview people. Um,
yeah.
and it is more difficult because you're looking at other people's diaries as well. But you could, even you, Ruth, you could say, these are my recording dates this month.
Ooh,
This is when I'm free to record, and let people slot into your diary rather than the other way around.
wild. I
Just,
do I do have segments that I record in. Like I
mm.
have, yeah, but I'm probably a little bit too flexible still. So top tip there. I love it. And listen,
Boundaries.
we touched on the interview podcast versus the solo podcast.
Mm, mm.
Love to know your thoughts around that. So for anyone like looking to start up,
Yeah.
what are the advantages of each?
Yes. So I would always recommend that when you start a podcast that is helping you to grow a business, that you have at least a few episodes that are solo right at the beginning, even if
Mhm.
your intention is to go to an interview format. The reason for that is people need to connect with you. They need to fall in love with you before you start bringing other voices onto the platform. And when you have somebody come onto your podcast, it's helping them. So me coming onto your podcast now, it's helping me. Yeah.
You're welcome.
So thank you very much. It's reciprocity. We're helping each other because I'm going to share this podcast with
Yeah.
my audience and so on. And that's a great thing about interviews. However, interviewing on every single episode can be limiting if your focus and your purpose for the podcast is to grow your own business, because it helps others grow theirs. Now, it
Mhm.
can work incredibly well, and I'm not shooting down interviews at all. I love them, and I'm planning another new podcast of my own right now. I am doing interviews on mine.
Exciting.
But I think solo episodes are fantastic for growth, essentially, for
Mm,
brand awareness. And it's always a great tool that you can send somebody. So if you're constantly getting asked a certain question, you'll all know, every listener now will know the question they always get asked in their business, the one that they get tired of answering. So they
yeah.
could create a podcast episode about it and use that as a tool to send to people like this, have a listen to this episode. This is what my full
Mhm.
thoughts are on this. It's almost like getting free coaching.
I
So
love that. Do you know,
yeah,
I'm inspired. We have talked about this before, and I was inspired then, not quite inspired enough to actually do it, but now I'm there.
hopefully, yeah,
Yeah, sometimes it takes a second kick up the
it
bum.
does.
So thanks for that. Amazing. Now, I we touched on this earlier in terms of sponsorship,
Mm,
but I actually have a lot of friends now,
hmm
or a lot of people have recently come into my world who
mm,
have podcasts,
yeah,
but have not monetized them.
yeah,
So what I'd love to know is what are the different monetization options with a
yeah.
podcast? How does
They're
that work?
they're endless, to be honest. I mean, the first one we always think about is sponsorship and ads, because
Hmm.
that's what we hear about. And that can be incredibly profitable. They do go off downloads, listenership, and
Hmm.
also the size of your following online.
Hmm.
So that is something that's very tangible and people can see this is how many downloads this show is getting. This is how much I'm going to charge you to get in front of my audience. That's
Hmm.
one way of doing it. The other way is things like affiliate partnerships.
Hmm.
So let's say you have an author come on your podcast. You could set up a Audible or an Amazon affiliate scheme, which anybody can do that for free. And you can put the link to the book with your affiliate link in the show notes and say, if you want to get hold of Sally's audiobook for free, then you can get it in the show notes. And then you continue to get commission from Audible. There's lots of ways like that that anybody can do right from episode one. But then the most profitable by far is selling your own products and services
Hmm.
through the building of trust and relationships and reputation and rapport from having a podcast yourself. So selling your own products and services, that doesn't mean you need to come on and create selling episodes that are just like info commercials or anything
Mm.
like that.
Sounds
But
super cringe.
yeah, which is horrible. But, dropping subtle hints and seeding the fact that you do certain things in your business and how
Mm.
you work with people. And then the other way that you can make money, I mean, there are many more than this, but another way that works incredibly well is by having people come onto your podcast who you would love to work with. Now, this works incredibly
Hmm.
well, especially in the corporate space. So having somebody come onto your podcast who you would love to work with, their business, build a reputation with that person. Sorry, not a reputation, build a relationship
Rapport,
with that person.
relationship. Yeah.
And then you are much more likely to have an in with that
Hmm.
company because you've already built up a bit of a rapport with each other. So there's loads of ways, loads of
Yeah.
ways.
And I have to say, that is an unexpected benefit I found with my
Yeah.
podcast. I was not expecting that.
Yeah.
But I actually now work with a load of my podcast clients
Yes. Yeah,
in my mastermind
exactly.
groups, which is amazing because I interview
Mm.
freaking awesome people.
Yeah.
And I'm now working with more and more
Mm.
incredible individuals. So
Yeah,
what a blessing.
it is.
Love it. Okay, so back to you, away from podcasting, back to you.
Hmm.
You have grown a team. How many are in your team now?
We've got nine
Nine. You've
partners.
grown a team of nine over the years that you've been in
Hmm.
business.
Mm.
And what I would love to know is what is the one thing you'd wish you'd known about leadership before growing your team?
Oh, what a great one, especially considering I was in HR for 20 years before this.
Yeah, I
It's
actually
so
hadn't realized
different.
that when I planned these questions, but
Yeah. But yeah, it's still a really great question because the difference between, I was head of HR director, doing that role was very, very different in terms of leadership to having to manage your own small team where everything matters so much more because it's your own business and you
mhm,
build relationships with the people that are in your team. Um, so the things that I've learned now from having my own team is to spend longer on interviewing before offering people a job.
mm, yes. Oh my goodness,
Much
I'm not sure if
longer.
this was on a podcast. I think it was actually where we were joking that basically you want to go and try and take someone for a drink to find out what they're really
Yes,
like before.
absolutely that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so really extend the interview process a little bit to get to know them
Yeah, I
better.
guess it's not necessarily extending it. It's more about the task of doing the job that I want them to do, then
Hmm.
great, they can do the task. But
Hmm.
it's so much more than that in a
Yeah.
smaller business. They have
Yeah.
to fit within the team. They have to get along with people, whether you like it or not. You don't like everybody, do you, that you
Hmm.
work with when you work in a large organization. But in a small team, you have to feel good about working with each other. So it really matters. So I think it's more about going underneath the normal interview process.
I like
It's
it.
it's more about can I have a drink with this person? Like you
Yes.
say,
Okay.
would I
So
be
can
happy
I
stuck in a
run?
lift with this person for
Yes.
an
Oh
hour?
God.
Yeah, that
Not
sort
many
of
people I'd
thing.
like to be. I mean, I'm not a big fan of lifts, so I'm literally getting a little bit of heart palpitations here. And now, have you ever hired someone where you've literally been like, "Oh my God, we chose badly here"? Have
Oh
you
my
done this
goodness, what a question to ask me.
very publicly as well? Hopefully, they're not
Um,
listening.
the answer to that is yes and no. So yes, I have, but then that doesn't mean that everything has to fail from there and that
Yeah.
relationship doesn't carry on. In one particular occasion I'm thinking of where I just had to call out what was happening, and if you nip things in the bud pretty early on,
Mm-hmm.
things can usually be resolved.
Wise words. And what a diplomatic answer.
Oh well,
Sorry
20
to ask
years in
awkward
HR will do
questions.
that to you.
I love it. I love it. Now, what habits do you have that you would
Hmm.
say have helped you in your business? Do you
Yeah.
have any daily habits that you think have moved you towards the success that you currently have?
So when I first started in my business, I was a proud member of the 5 a.m. club.
Oof,
And I
gosh.
did that honestly for, oh my goodness, for a long time, well longer than I would have wanted
Girl.
to. It worked. It
Yes.
absolutely worked. Because I was in a period of hustle. When you're starting a business, you've got
Yes.
to put the hours in, haven't you?
Absolutely.
So it worked at that time. So if you'd have asked me that question when I started, I would say, well, yeah, I get up at 5 a.m. I do this, I do that. I follow the Miracle Morning Routine by
Mm-hmm.
Hal Elrod,
Yeah.
all of that great stuff. Now, I don't do any of that. And I'm never one to say, you must be up early to, have a successful business. Every successful person gets up at 4 a.m. or whatever it might be. What I do now is I live by the rule that I have to learn something new each day. That's what I like to
Wow.
do.
What have you learned today?
I I don't know yet, actually. We're still only halfway through the day and I've been on calls all day. So
Okay.
let's see. But the way I track that is I journal. So I have a little journal here on my desk. And at the end of every work day, I have a little bit of a routine where I sort of consolidating what's happened that day and prepping for the next day. Only a few minutes, just sort of saying, okay, what did I get done today? What do I need to pass over to tomorrow? And then what are the things I'm grateful for? So I do that in my journal every day. The odd time I'll forget, of course I do, because I'm human. But I live by the rule of if I'm just staying still and stagnant, I'm not growing. And I'm a big fan of growth, personal development, new hobbies, new skills, new things that you can do, new ways of learning. So I always like to learn something new every day, no matter how small it is.
Nice.
So yeah, not really a routine, but a rule to live by.
So, an unplanned question off the back of that. What have been your most impactful business or personal development books that you've read?
Oh, that's a great one. I'm actually reading one right now, which I know is going to be pretty transformational. I'm only
Mm-hmm.
halfway through it and it's already opening my eyes. So it's called Living and Working with AI.
Ooh, gosh.
And obviously, it's a huge time for AI right now. We're recording this just a week or so after the stock market pretty much plummeted
Mm-hmm.
because a Chinese AI company said, "Oh, we can do AI for a fraction of the cost." I think it's an incredibly exciting time for technology and AI, and
Very much so.
I'm a massive tech geek. I
Mm-hmm.
absolutely love tech. So I'm reading that at the moment, and as much as I know about tech and AI, where I am right now, I have been blown away by this book. And I think the reason I said this is going to be so transformational is because I know that the jobs that my grandchildren will have, and my children to an extent, I mean, they're older, they're 24
Mm,
and 19, but even jobs they will have in a few years,
yeah.
they're not even invented yet. Like
Yeah.
we have no idea what the world is going to look like in the future. So the reason I think that's going to be so transformational is I think we need to be embracing AI. As
Mm-hmm.
scary and as scared as we might feel about it, because some people are, I think we need to embrace it because it's our future, whether we like it or not.
100%, 100%. I've been teaching my kids to be kind to our robots because just in case robots ever actually take over, I want them to think we're friends.
I am definitely the person on ChatGPT where I will say please and thank you.
Yeah. Good morning, darling. How are you today? I'm not, honestly, I've used ChatGPT like about 3 times, like ever.
You've got to say thank you. You've got to.
We've recently got a Tesla, which honestly is a little bit too AI techie for me. So I get in the car, I'm like, hi, darling. How are you?
I love that.
Yeah, you want to be friends with everyone, and the robots are 100% up there. Yeah. Amazing. On that note, what a great time to wrap up. Lynsay, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for coming on. So for our listeners who want to connect with you, where is the best place?
Yeah, probably on LinkedIn. I'm Lynsay Gould. I'll give you the link for the show notes, but also on Instagram, we're on there at Wavemakers Audio. So you can come and connect with me there or over on LinkedIn. They're the best 2 places.
Amazing. And for anyone who's thinking about going down that podcasting route, tell me in like a snapshot, 10 seconds, what are the options for working with you for that?
Yeah, we have a couple of different things. We have a course for people who want to go off and do it themselves. Absolutely. And you can have a look at that on our website, wavemakersaudio.com. And then we're an agency. We create podcasts, launch them and produce them for people. So the best thing to do if anybody's interested in having a chat about what that might look like is just go and book a call on my website and we can have a conversation about it. But yeah, we can do as little or as much as people need in that
amazing
production
and I have to say, so we met fairly recently. I have been blown away by the wisdom that you have shared. Honestly, it's been transformational. So yes, for any listeners who are thinking maybe I'm going to venture into that route, highly recommend chat with Lynsay.
Thank you so much, Ruth. Thanks for having me.
You're super welcome. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening today. If you like what you hear, please hit subscribe and leave us a review. Even better, come connect with me, Ruth Ferreira, on LinkedIn and Instagram. I'd love to get to know you.